Ford is in trouble again, and this time it's not just another routine recall buried in paperwork. This time, Ford is telling people something you almost never hear from a car company. Stop driving your vehicle right now. Not schedule a service appointment when you get a chance. Not bring it in next month. Stop driving immediately. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why that phrase should make every Ford owner in America sit up and pay attention. What's actually broken? How many vehicles are affected? And what this means for the bigger picture of what's been happening at Ford over the last year and a half. So let's start with the headline news. In early June 2026, Ford advised owners of certain Bronco Sport SUVs and Maverick pickup trucks not to drive their vehicles because of a part that may have been incorrectly installed, which could cause the driver to lose control of steering. This recall covers 4,653 vehicles, and Ford is telling those owners to stop driving them immediately because the front lower control arm ball joints might not have been assembled correctly. If that joint fails while you're driving, you could lose steering control entirely, which obviously massively increases the risk of a crash. The Detroit News +2. Now here's where it gets interesting, and this is the part that a lot of news outlets are glossing over. This isn't some vague theoretical might happen someday issue. The defect specifically affects 2,296 Bronco Sport units from model years 2021 through 2026, along with 2,357 Maverick units spanning 2022 through 2026. According to Ford's own filing, a manufacturing error at the assembly stage, either an incorrect installation or a faulty implant repair, left some front lower control arm ball studs only partially seated in the wheel knuckle. Think about that for a second. A ball joint is one of the most basic, most critical connection points between your wheel and the rest of your car. If it's not fully seated, it can separate while you're driving down the highway, and that's when you lose your ability to steer. Yahoo! Yahoo! So where did this go wrong? Ford traced it back to its Hermosillo stamping and assembly plant in Mexico. And specifically, for vehicles built before June 1, 2025, assembly plant operators may not have fully inserted the front lower control arm ball stud into the wheel knuckle before tightening and associated. If you're an affected owner, here's what actually happens next. Ford is advising owners to check online to see if their vehicle is included in this recall. And if it is, the vehicle will be towed to a dealership for inspection and repair, with some customers also having the option of mobile service technicians coming to inspect the vehicle at home. And to be clear, all of this is at zero cost to the owner. Ford is absorbing the entire financial burden of fixing this. So if your Maverick or Bronco Sport falls into those model years, the move is simple. Check your VIN, and if you're flagged, don't drive it until it's been looked at. CarScoops +2. But here's the bigger story, and this is where things get genuinely wild. This Bronco Sport and Maverick steering recall is not an isolated event. It is one piece of a much larger pattern that's been building all year. Ford has recalled 7.4 million vehicles in the United States so far in 2026 alone. And according to industry analysis, that already exceeds Ford's entire recall volume for all of 2025. Let that sink in for a second. We're not even halfway through the year, and Ford has already recalled more vehicles than it did in the entirety of the previous year. Revved up cars. And 2025 was already a record-breaking year for all the wrong reasons. Last year, Ford issued 152 safety recalls, which was almost double the previous industry record set by General Motors back in 2014. More than 24 million vehicles were recalled in the US last year total, and more than half of those, about 13 million, were Fords or Lincolns. For comparison, Tesla issued just 11 recalls that same year, affecting only 745,000 vehicles. So when people say Ford is in a different category right now compared to other automakers, that's not an exaggeration. That's just what the numbers show. Harvard +2. So what's actually driving all of this? A lot of it traces back to manufacturing and quality control issues, just like the ball joint problem we talked about earlier. Take the windshield wiper recall from earlier this year as another example. Ford recalled about 604,533 SUVs, Explorers, Escapes, and their Lincoln siblings, the Aviator and Corsair, because of potentially faulty windshield wiper motors. But here's the part that should really make you raise an eyebrow. This wiper problem was first flagged by customers all the way back in 2021. Ford actually opened an investigation into it back then, and by September of that year, closed the investigation. Now here's a fair question you might be asking. Is this just bad luck? Or is something structurally different happening at Ford right now, compared to other automakers? And the honest answer, based on what's publicly documented, is that warranty costs are part of the story. Warranty expenses at Ford reached nearly 5% of revenue in 2025, compared to roughly 4% at GM. That's a real, measurable gap, and it lines up with everything we've just walked through. More recalls generally means more warranty claims, and more warranty claims means more money going out the door to fix problems that, ideally, shouldn't have made it out of the factory in the first place. So let's bring this all the way back to where we started. The Bronco Sport and Maverick steering recall isn't scary because of the number of vehicles. INVOLVED 4653 is actually small compared to some of the multi-million unit recalls we just talked about. It's scary because of what it represents. A basic assembly step, tightening a bolt before a part is fully seated, that directly affects your ability to steer the vehicle. And it's happening inside a broader pattern where Ford has now recalled more vehicles in the first part of 2026 than it did in all of 2025, which itself was already a record-shattering year. If you own a Bronco Sport or a Maverick from these model years, do not wait around. Go check your VENG on Ford's recall lookup tool or on NHTSA's website, and if your vehicle comes back flagged, treat it seriously. The repair is free, the towing is free, and Ford is required by federal law to make this right. But the responsibility to check is on you. Here's the question I want to leave you with, and I genuinely want to know what you think. Is this just the cost of building millions of vehicles at scale, where a tiny percentage of issues are inevitable no matter how careful you are? Or is something deeper going on with how Ford is managing quality control across its plants? Drop your take in the comments because I read every single one. And some of the best insight on these stories comes from people who've actually owned these vehicles and dealt with this stuff firsthand. If you want to stay ahead of stuff like this, recalls, safety alerts, and what's really going on behind the scenes at the major automakers, that's exactly what we cover here on Car Exposed. So if this kind of breakdown is useful to you, you know what to do. We'll keep digging into this story as more details come out, because with Ford's track record this year, this almost certainly won't be the last one.